Hey guys, it's Lane with Tim's Nation. I'm here with friend of the channel, Zach, and we're here today to talk about our experiences at the Arch City GT in Columbus this past weekend. Unfortunately, DJ couldn't make it for reasons of ego. He was not able to fit his head through this door coming into the studio, so he won't be able to join us today. We'll have to get back into him and talk to him a little bit later once the swelling goes down. So we are going to talk a little bit about our experiences today through the Arch City GT. Zach, why don't you tell us a little bit how your tournament experience was?
Well, as fans of the channel know, I play Salamanders. But I played Eldar. 1,000 Suns are broken. You know that?
That's the problem in the meta.
It is 1,000 Suns. My Wraith Knight has a 2-up armor save, but she doesn't get an in-wall save. But they're like, ooh, no armor save, 9 Cabal points, freaking Armin. That's not fair. I need a buff.
Yeah, it sounds like this is less a complaint about 1,000 Suns and more just a direct request to Games Workshop. Hey, why don't you buff these Eldar? They're really suffering out there.
Yeah.
Hey guys, what you guys doing?
Hey DJ, we're just talking about the.
Hey, whoa! I've told you, we had a 2-hour drive home. It is War Master Tim's. I mean, dude, come on! You made it all the way to the finals, and you can't understand this concept.
Is that the trophy for War Master?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, sure.
Got
I mean, we've
texture
discussed this so many times now, and guys, hey, we still got a video to record. Guys, hey, come, my cup, hey, Zach. Welcome back, all my 40K fanatics out there. I'm DJ here with Tim's Nation, joined today by Mr. Lane DeLong, as you guys see on the channel, as well as Zach Morales. Give me that back. And we are, as these gentlemen have said, here to talk about our Arch City GT2 review, reactions, and just our general experience about the whole thing. First and foremost, guys, if you haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. Turn on the bell for notifications, get notified on all the content we put out here on the channel. Today's content is just a simple review and experiences of this tournament that was held in Columbus, Ohio, and run, organized, TO'd by Mr. Scott Stormquest. Big shout out to that guy. He made sure to have it said every single person got to walk out with something, whether it was a certificate for all the factions, not like the tiered faction groupings, DeathWatch right here, the Eldar, Tyranids, every single faction represented, as well as door prizes and even objective markers, which, I mean, we know those things are tough to come by. The discs, the little mouse pad material ones, those ones usually got to order and wait quite a few weeks to get them in. There's no Amazon Prime on those.
Yeah, everyone got a chance to walk up, get their picture taken with them at the end, and accept some kind of prize for something. So it's always great that everyone was able to participate.
Right. And I mean, it was a great event. I mean, Scott did an awesome job. Definite big shout out to him on that one, honestly.
Like DJ is not exaggerating when he said everyone got a prize. I came in 9th place, and I walked away with a Hellbrick, which is a $55 model. It was just door prizes. Like at the big events, if you've ever been to a GW event, Lane has, he tells me all about it. He's like, one of the best things he liked about it was everyone walked away with a goodie bag. And the best part, even better than like walking away with something, it's just for charity. It was a really good charity. I don't remember exactly what, but I remember hearing it and like, yep, I don't mind my money going to that.
Yeah. And I think he said for an event that started with maybe 56 players, I think 56, 58 players were just shy of 60. There was like $3,500 in prize support. For that number of players, that was a lot of prize support.
Yeah, it was definitely awesome. A big shout out to Scott. And I think I think it's pretty much speaking for you guys that we'll see you guys next year there. Right.
Oh yeah.
That's the plan.
Especially Hopefully. Because that drive's easy on us. It's great how much is picked up in the Cleveland area where we're able to kind of just sleep in our own beds or get up and drive the morning of and all that stuff. I mean, that's feels so much better of the days of having to leave a job and drive through the night and then get a hotel room. And I'm glad those days I don't have to do those so much because Cleveland has really picked up with the competitive scene.
Definitely. Top tier players all around.
Which was one of the beautiful things that we'll start off with when we start talking about our review. Out of day one, all three of us were 3-0, looking at the score sheets going, well, one of us is going to end up playing the other one.
DJ and I were actually worried that we were going to have a rematch of our last stream game that we had to prepare for this, Grey Knights versus DeathWatch, the exact same missions, because we were practicing missions that were at the event, and it turned out that on the round that that event, that mission was, with that deployment mission and special rule, it turned out the most likely that DJ and I would end up playing each other.
That was game 4. Oh, yeah.
I mean, I was okay with that. If you guys remember that battle report, I was like, oh, great. This is easy.
Yeah, I was not. I was not looking forward to that. And I'm like, yep. I was even telling Lane ahead of time, I'm like, I almost feel like I can see the future in this one. And we might as well just pick a table and start setting up at this point.
It's a very Grey Knights thing, right? Being able to see the future, tell what's going to happen.
Well, I mean,
we were wrong.
As much as it being a Grey Knights thing, that was not my fate for that. Pun intended.
Don't you make another Eldar pun, Pat? I played my army perfectly.
You did, as did I.
It turns out that DJ played his army perfectly too.
Because in a odd turn of events, Mission 4, which was player-placed objectives, and we could only score 10 on primary each turn.
Is it priority? Is that what the name of it was?
I believe priority targets, I think it was the name of it. But it was 10 points on the primary at the command phase.
5 points for each primary objective.
Correct.
But a max of 10.
Thank you.
And you score 5 points for each one you hold at the end of the game. Not just in your last command phase, but the end of the game.
15.
So max of 15. So it actually was possible that both people could max out primaries because you just had to hold two all the way through all 4 rounds and then also at the end of the game.
Right. And legitimately, as we go over the review of this whole thing, legitimately, the only reason I was able to max out 100 was because of the fact that I went second. And other than that, I mean, literally, otherwise not knowing Zach and him playing Eldar, he basically could have walked up to the table and been like, hi, my name's Zach. I score 100 points. And that's really what it was. So the only theory for me was, well, if I can't beat him, join him. Hey, how does 100 feel as well? So that was a very, very interesting. We're going to go over that and cover all that stuff here in a short, but one of the bigger items was, Mr. Lane, you were playing on the top table and 1 point shy of taking it all home.
Yeah, it was crazy, guys. I've never gone better than 3-2 at a GT, and I won my first 3 games on day 1. Day 2 started off playing against a friend of the channel, Josh Minnick. He's been on here before. You guys have seen him play DJ once or twice. And it was a great game, and I ended up pulling off the win on that one. So I was 4-0 going into round 5. There's only 2 of us that was undefeated. So I was top table against the Custodes player.
There were 4 undefeated, okay?
Yes.
I didn't lose. We got a draw.
This is true. This is true. We were both
I had
undefeated.
4 wins. Does that clarify? I had 4 wins with 0 draws. I think do you feel better now that you've made me correct that? So I had 4 wins. Not only was I undefeated, I won 4 times in a row, unlike a couple other guys here. So 4 wins in a row. Last game was the top table. Only 2 of us who had 4 wins in a row. And I played against Custodes. It was a back and forth game. It was crazy. We traded sides of the boards. The scores went back and forth. It was a roller coaster. He beat me by a single point, 88-87. So congrats on him for winning it. Unfortunately, that knocked me down to 6th place because that's how scoring systems work.
It was strength of schedule.
Because DJ finished with 4 wins and a tie, and I had 4 wins and a loss. There were several people that had 4 wins and a loss, and even though my last 2 games were against super high competitive players that went 4-1 or 5-0, my first game was actually against a gentleman who went 0-5 through the whole tournament. So that kind of threw off my strength of schedule. But still, shout out to my guy Adam because he brought in Stampa with his list. So even though he went 0-5, he still is the people's champion for bringing the Stampa, Orc Stampa. So
you should have. When he walked up to the podium, the crowd was like,
everyone was very happy to see him.
Yeah, he got his door prize. Everyone was very happy. As I said, he brought the big boy out to play. I also apologize to Adam because I picked up that Stampa turn 1. So
Lane's not apologizing. He's
no. DeathWatch shoot real hard, my guys. So, anyways, that was my tournament experience. It was still my best turnout. Obviously, a little disappointing that I missed it by 1, and obviously going back through my head, there's a whole lot of woulda, shoulda, couldas. Maybe if I had done this, but whatever. Learned a lot. Had a great experience. We all did really well. So that was mine.
So let's get things rolling into it as we've kind of already started to touch on things. So Zach, as you stated, typically you are a Marine player and you play Salamander specifically. You know,
I am the number 6 Salamander worldwide.
So then this is the first time I've seen that you've gone Xenos. And you went Xenos and you went deep with it. Filthy Xenos. So first things first, going into this thing and taking such a powerful army. I mean, we've seen it. We've seen the numbers Eldar are put out there. And it is nothing to an insult to you. They are the top of the meta. They are the coup de grace. They have the best tools and the best weapons at their disposal. Mm-hmm. During your run, you actually ran into another Eldar list. Mm-hmm. And that Eldar list had a Wraith Knight in it as well. Let's talk a little bit about that. So first of all, in that matchup, did you go first or second?
I think I went.
That's interesting that for that. So the first second.
No, I went second. Sorry, I went second because in the initial matchup, the reason I remember that is he said to me, he's like, "This game is decided by who goes first," and I said, "I doubt that." There seems to be this mentality with Eldar and these other very heavy shooting armies that if you go first, it is a guaranteed win. And as someone that's played Salamanders and had to play first and second, like I'm not used to playing a meta army. It's really weird. The idea of guaranteeing a win on first turn is appalling to me. I want to have options to win on any turn. So I went second. And what happened is I outmaneuvered him. He wasn't ready. He didn't use his strats very well. He forgot. We even talked about it after. Eldar have a very strong, very important strat called Fire and Fade. His Fire Prism went out, shot at something. They didn't pick up what they wanted to turn one. Like it was a minuscule amount. His Warwalkers moved to middle, and he left his stuff in the open. I positioned myself to get angles on him when he retreated, where he was, and gave myself the opportunity. I picked up both his Fire Prisms turn one. He panic brought in his Wraith Knight.
Now, what were you able to pick up with the Fire Prisms? Because Fire Prisms typically one of them's hiding to allow the other one to get that line of sight.
The Warwalkers, actually. So the Warwalkers came up left flank. They moved 9 inches pregame, scout. I knew I was going second, so I moved them into terrain so we couldn't see them. Mm-hmm. And then they moved 10. I was able to get an angle straight across the board to the Fire Prism hiding behind the building. That was able to, because it had to get a sight line on the other Fire Prism, so he had to expose it. Because he didn't Phantasm, and he didn't Fire and Fade.
I think it's important at this point that we kind of acknowledge that Zach has been planning an Eldar army before 10th edition. Mm-hmm. And why is it that you have been planning an Eldar army? Why do you want to play Eldar?
As a Salamanders player, I've fought a lot of Eldar players. And every time I play them as a Salamander, I get out movement on. Like they have precise, very crisp movement phases, and they have to plan that out. And as a Space Marine player, I have oftentimes been like, I move about 6 inches and just kind of like, and that's cost me games. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to take an army that would force me to be aware of movement and then bring that back to Salamanders. Like because my Salamanders have effective shooting. I've gotten that down. I think we can agree on that, Layton. Like you've seen my shooting priority. Yeah. But what I don't have is great movement, great concealment, great cover. And
that's I'm trying to Marine thing in general, aside from a couple of chapters that have some tricks in them, Grey Knights, which are Adeptus Sancta, and not in that same sense in DeathWatch. A lot of Marine chapters do kind of lack that mobility and are forced to play the game on the board, boots on the ground, and that kind of aspect of it.
Right. So I wanted to bring that movement to my Salamanders to take them up that next level because I've gone 4-1-1. I got best Space Marine. Well, not like best Space Marine. I think Sam Dayton did, but I got like best Imperial Space Marine or something. At MCM. Like I got a prize for Space Marine. And there was one game against Eldar that cost me that. Mm-hmm. Cost me being that top dog Space Marine player. And it was Eldar. And I stewed on it. I stewed on
Eldar.
Yeah, I stewed on it.
Xenos.
And I have a great friend. I'm just going to call him Doc G, right? Mm-hmm. And he plays Eldar. And I talked to him about it. He's like, you've been playing Space Marine so long, right? You haven't got another perspective. Right, yeah. So I decided to play Eldar.
That is very, very, very important, especially with a lot of armies. Like you sit on an army for so long, it's nice to play other factions, even if you don't plan on taking them competitively, just to get that perspective. Because especially like you look into something like a lot of people talk about the Lich Guard and how it's like, oh man, the Lich Guard, there's such a wall. They just don't die. But then when you go and play them on the table and you push them out there, and then someone like me who's played Necrons for a while can go, okay, I know how to pick this apart and pull it apart. Now you're going to see that and go, oh, wow, they just got picked apart. What happened here? And then now it's going to click. And next time you face off against Necrons, bam, you're able to remove those Lich Guard like they're nothing because of that forced perspective around the defensive aspects of it, where it may feel like, wow, the Necron player always has all of the options right there readily available, and it's just laid out on the table for them. Then when you play it, you're like, well, wow, I have no command points and nothing I can really do here. And all my reanimator's dead. And yeah, so what do I do here? Now, granted, Lich Guard are still brutally defensive, but the testament still remains true. By forcing that perspective, you really get to see those other aspects of it, which help you better for your more competitive tournament armies you may play.
Right. And as people who remember, so I was on one of the earlier battle reports of the channel with my salamanders. All my armies are fully custom, so I went full tilt with my Eldar because I thought, this is what I do. And then 10th edition comes, and I'm not really playing a movement-based army anymore, right? I'm playing a revolver that it can shoot the sun, blow up the sun, and then the sun blows up in your face. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, right? Like, how would you describe it, right? A sun blowing up in your face.
That's the only way to describe it.
Right?
Like an exploding star in your face.
My Wraith Knight here, her name is Shiva, Destroyer of Men, Breaker of Will. When I played the other Eldar player, he brought on his Wraith Knight because I'm not going to lie, I think the Wraith Knight's kind of a crutch as a player, at least for me. I don't know about him. But he panicked. He killed one of my fire presence with his. He focused fire. Shiva came on, got 5 shots, hit all 5, rolled 3 6s naturally, had 1 procced by fate dice, and just said, peasant, disappear from my table.
Now, I'll have to stop you there for a second with that. With, like you said, the Wraith Knight being a crutch with it. The Wraith Knight is a very, very powerful tool all around. And it's difficult to not get away from something that's just so powerful in that aspect. Like, you can't just go, oh, I'm not going to take a Wraith Knight because it's too good. It's too this. We're going to a competition. We're playing in a competition. So you can't, what?
There's an alien above me.
Yes, there probably is. But no, children upstairs. But no, you cannot not take some of the best, more powerful pieces. I mean, the Wraith Knight literally picks up anything that it looks at. There's not very many things. Like, yeah, there's things you can tech into to slow the damage down, but you're slowing it down. You're not stopping it. There are things that, like when we played our matchup with the Imperial Knights versus Grey Knights, we quickly learned afterwards how much the Grey Knights could wall Imperial Knights. And I'm really glad we had that matchup, since I did get 2 Imperial Knight players, and both times I was able to just absolutely wall their armies with that sense. So, but the Wraith Knight's one you can't wall. It's going to happen, especially with the fact of the Fate dice and just bam, 6, bam, mortal wounds, bam. It is what it is.
What also makes it so potent is a lot of important units for armies have 5 or more of them. It does have the blast keyboard. Getting those guaranteed 2 shots on a D3 is big, especially since I have a reroll I can just use. So what I typically will do is 1 gun will go here, 1 gun will go here. 1 gun gets the fate dice, the other gets the Eldar reroll.
Yep. And then as well at the same time too, when you're going at 1 target, you can even, I mean, in some scenarios, you can just let the dice decide, because still, needless to say, you're still looking at 2d6 damage off that thing, as it would seem. But now we've talked about the Eldar. I'm sure that tons of people have heard so much about Eldar, and we'll come back to it when I want to address our game, because a 100-100 tie is a very unique thing.
It's crazy, guys.
But Mr. Lane, again, you stated you had a game with our good buddy Josh Minnick, and he brought his Chaos Army and hit you with some. Luckily, before Josh's game,
yeah. So it's interesting because throughout this tournament, my dice were not that great. It wasn't like I was getting lots of lucky rolls,
No, you were
but I
saying
got
that during
lucky
lunch,
in other ways. I got lucky in other ways. Every time I rolled damage on a D6 crack missile, and I have 24 crack missile shots in my army. Every time I roll the damage, it's always 1, 2, or 3 or something. But I definitely was fortunate in some other ways outside of just the cold dice. So for round 1, I played against the orcs. Sorry, Adam, destroyed the stomp at turn 1. If anybody has, I've posted my army list a couple times in some DeathWatch Facebook groups. People ask me, yeah, but can you take out armor? The answer is yes. I picked up the stomp at turn 1 when half of my army was in deep strike. So it was just 2 Proteus kill teams and 2 whirlwinds that did the work. But Deathwatch definitely, and again, my dice were not
I
particularly
mean, you
hot.
took out the Caladius tanks in your Custody matchup too.
Yeah. I mean, obviously it depends a little bit on the dice, but it wasn't exceptional dice, and it still made it happen. But so then round 2, I played into Matt. No, I'm sorry, I played into Corey, and he had Thousand Suns. Again, a pretty good matchup for me, but he was a great opponent. We had a great time. Third round was Matt. Matt was playing Chaos Space Marines and brought Forge Fiends and Obliterators and did a lot of work with those. I still managed to pull out the win in that game. Was still a very eye-opening experience. It was the first time I played against Chaos Space Marines, the first time I played against Obliterators,
Yep.
and the Forge Fiends all stacked together.
Can we
They
call
hit
them what we
really,
want?
really hard. No,
They really are, which is just what we wanted. Gravis Terminators. Right? They're
I mean,
Chaos
yeah.
Gravis Terminators, right?
they're double Terminators. They're 7 wounds.
Double, like Gravis Marines are double Marines. They're Gravis Terminators.
Yeah.
But they hit
nasty.
so hard. And they have the ridiculous rule they can just ignore line of sight once per game. I don't know why, but they can. A squad of 4 of them dropped in game 3, and he split fire between the 2 of them. So 2 Obliterators shot one of my whirlwinds, the other 2 shot the other one. Just picked them up. Easy as could be. They hit so hard. But anyways, I did pull off the win against Matt. Game 4 was against a friend of the channel, Josh. And Josh was also playing Chaos Space Marines. And I was fortunate enough to have just played against them, just had the practice into them before I played into Josh. And of course, Josh is a incredible gentleman when you play against him, because he made sure I knew what he could do and how he could use the Nurgle strat specifically to make it so I couldn't shoot a unit outside of 12 inches, and kind of made sure I knew that every turn.
Yeah, definitely special.
He probably
shout out
could
to
have
Josh.
kept his mouth shut and not said anything, and he might have won the game. But it was a very dramatic game. Turn 1, he went first, did no damage because I was hidden. Again, half my army is typically off the table. I keep about 970 points in deep strike at the beginning of the game most of the times. He moved out a war dog just to block out my deep strike possibilities, because I can redeploy with the teleportarium strat. I was able to pick that up turn 1, and then a few cultists. So I picked up maybe 200 points. Then in his turn 2, he brought in those Obliterators, brought them out on the table, those Forge Fiends, and he picked up 700 points in my army. Almost all of both of my Proteus kill teams, leaving 2 Terminators in 1, and picked up my Assassin, my Calidus. And I thought it was game over at that point. I'm like, oh, that was interesting. I really don't like those Obliterators very much. But I brought in everything from reserves. I called with Tome of Ectoclades, the enhancement that Deathwatch have. I was able to call 2 Oaths a Moment on those 2 4-man Obliterator squads, and killed one and then killed the other, and scraped the last wound off the second squad with a Storm Bolter from a Terminator. And it's a good thing I did that, because they can bring back.
Yeah, they get that.
They can bring back
resurrected guy.
a one of those Obliterators with a strat. So there's a big difference between having 0 Obliterators and 2 Obliterators. If I had not killed that last one, he would have had 2 the next turn. They can still, like I said, they can pop just about any tank on their own. So I was able to pull off the win, fight back from that, destroy the Obliterators next turn, pick up the Forge Fiends and Abaddon and a Hellbrute, and just take all of his damage output off the table. Again, amazing game with Josh. Hugs, afterwards, because it was a big deal. So that was how my fourth
and game, and to get that win over Josh, that's definitely feather. Josh is traveling all the time, playing so many armies, so many tournaments, so many times, and that's like, it is a testament that I've heard this multiple times, that people say, oh, the guys that are on top are the guys who cheat the most, who know how to abuse the rules the most. No, that's not the case. Because like right there, Josh has had many top finishes. Josh has won GTs. But in that moment, in that time, he made sure to tell you the rules. That game was going to be won and lost on the table, not won and lost in, I'm going to say, a courtroom because of rule.
Oh yeah, he wanted to
the
make
game.
sure he didn't win because I forgot about one of his
No,
abilities. Yeah.
no.
His integrity is just like astronomical. He's the type of opponent you want when you play Warhammer.
So definitely big shout out to Josh on that one. Yeah, like you said, friend of the channel. All of us have got games with him, and will continue to travel and get games with him in the future.
I'm a little worried because I think he owes me one. Next time we meet, I think I'm going to get beat pretty bad.
He'll remember.
Speaking of owing somebody,
I've become his nemesis or something. I mean, he's going to hunt me down.
Speaking of owing someone one, putting the fear of what I'm about to take to a tournament in me after our matchup.
So DJ is undefeated with Grey Knights, except by me.
I went into the GT a damaged man.
Go back and watch the post game recap.
Oh man,
our last game.
Really scared.
DJ starts just with a.
My list is locked in, and there was not now. The FAQ dropped, and there were FAQ and errata dropped for some of the changes to the entire game, and because of that, Scott said we will allow these.
Allowed list changes up until the Thursday before.
Right, because they were going to use those because they knew everybody wanted. And some of the changes there was major changes, but they were still minor, if that kind of makes sense.
Things like the correction on the Imperial Knights that they only reroll one hit roll and one wound roll of one. That might affect what they
or the fact that a Grey Knight chaplain had the ability it was allowed to attach to Terminators or Paladins, but didn't have the leader keyword.
No.
Little things like that. Or I think in German, if you played the little fortification thing from Death Guard, in German, it got like 66 D6 shots, just because of how it was. Now, granted, we've seen recently with some of the updates that D66 is going to be something that we're probably going to see more in the future, where D66 is you roll one dice and that is the ones column. You roll the second dice and that is the zero. I'm sorry, that other way around. The first dice is the tens. The second dice is the ones.
Don't tell me that. My Raven can barely get 12 mortal wounds out.
Yeah, we're going to be looking at D6. At some point in time, we're going to see some D66. Maybe it's going to be held to some more Titanic and Forge World stuff, but D66 is going to be a thing. We did see it with Chaos with some of their warp abilities in the past and boons of Chaos, but it's something that I've seen a couple times pop up, especially in the app where I see randomly D66. So something to keep in mind is that we might see it in some of the codexes on some of the new units. But after our game, I remember sitting outside and thinking, and then I even was on the phone with Zach and I was talking to him and I'm like, Scott just opened up list submission again. So I could just switch over to Necrons. Maybe I should just switch to Necrons.
I just called you a chicken.
Coward.
But I took Grey Knights.
And good thing you did.
Very much so. I'll zoom in on this so you can see I'm waiting on my certificate from it. But honestly, this is beautiful, and I do love this thing. It's special to it. It says, I owe you, War Master Best General, Arch City GT. From Scott, handwritten. Handwritten.
How many times did he just look at that and giggle on the ride back?
Yeah.
Too many, right?
I mean, we all kind of did because that was silly. That was funny. Oh, come on, that was funny.
I didn't laugh. I was a little posterior pummeled by
Well, Josh and I were after round 4 helping him come up with a name for it. He didn't even have a name for the place. He's like, "What should I call this? What should I call this?" That might be the reason why it's a handwritten certificate at this point.
Possibly, but Scott did get in touch with me and asked him for an address. He is mailing out that one, so yay, I'll get to put that up on the wall. I'm very excited about it. I mean, but this is really cool. This is the trophy from it, which is this really cool laden with skulls mug. As Zach pointed out earlier, kind of difficult to drink from.
Oh yeah, I feel like I'm gonna like scrape my knuckles.
Oh yeah. But the thing looks so cool.
But it's super Warhammer.
Oh yeah. And it is
both grim and dark.
Yes, it's going to be a great addition to the trophy case. Love it. And that's kind of one of the cool things, like seeing a lot of tournaments lately have been getting into the realm of very unique trophies. Like, I have one from Frogtown that's kind of like, it's a glowy one. I have Battle Axe from before. What was it? Pittsburgh did the belts.
Oh yeah, the championship
belts. We've seen the chain swords, like
at the local store.
I think 3D printing has really opened it up. If you're running a tournament, just find someone to print some cool trophies for you. There's so much stuff out there, and that's kind of a fun thing, is having that as a memory.
Right. And the thing is, like, yes, I mean, honestly, I could go and buy this. We could buy these things, but because it was earned from playing with toy soldiers on a table, makes it feel so much cooler.
I'm sorry, I have to correct you. That is a lady right there. That Wraith Knight is a demigod.
Still a toy soldier, but either way, yeah. Like,
I mean, you don't have to be embarrassed, DJ, about being proud of it. The people watching this video are also super Warhammer nerds.
So exactly. They're looking at this right. There's somebody sitting there at home going, "Oh man, I want that cup."
Let's not lie. Like here, like even if you're not a good player, like, and you go sign up for that first GT, you imagine yourself like, what would I do if I'm standing at that podium at the end of this tournament? My idea won. My concept that no one else has thought of has won. You know, and you just get this giddy feeling in your heart.
Oh yeah, we all say, I just want to go 3-2. That's all. No, I really want to win.
Oh yeah, always.
It's nothing wrong with that feeling. It's just, you're just trying not to let yourself down, but you're not. It's totally fine.
But at the same time, too, you do have to remember at the end of it all, it is a game. Win, lose, or draw, it is a game, and we do meet a lot. Like, I'm not saying that every single opponent you play against is going to be the best time and have the best time and be the best mood. There's going to be some of them that it's going to be a little sluggish, but that shouldn't deter you from the overall experience, because most of the people, like every single opponent I had this tournament, was fun and we had a good time. Every single one of them I had a great time playing against, and I had good games against, and it wasn't like there was anything overly heated in this event. I can't say that for every event I've ever been to, but I can say that with this one, including my last game, which I played against Orcs, which was honestly, because of the mission, because of my army, because of Orc Horde, I was walking into that thing he was coming into that with a handicap against my list. And by turn 2, turn 3, he looks at me and goes, "You know, I know that this is not going well for me, but I'm playing Orcs." Breaks out the tape measure, goes, "Here we go," and just starts moving things into me and just pushes everything in. And after it failed, he's like, "All right, I had my fun. We can just flip cards and call this at this point." And then we did. We flipped cards to call it and see what he could score in points. And I was going to be courteous. I was courteous about it and said, "Yeah, you've got the unit to score that. You can score that. Cool." And was able to get the 100 to 78 finish.
Let's not lie here, right? Real Orc players are just bros. They're just the funniest.
I've never played against an Orc player that is
like a real Orc
really
player. There are meta chasing Orc players, like people that have Orcs for when they get broken, and those guys are not fun.
Yeah, most of them just love the voice,
and they're just like, I'm a wog. Like if they do a real wog, you know they're a real one.
Yep, then you know that guy at the GT, because every round you'll be playing, everything gets loud, and then one guy just, wah! Everything gets silent.
He's always standing right behind me.
Like, oh my God. All right, but I gotta ask, guys, did you have a favorite moment of the GT in your games? Because we played 5 games of Warhammer. There had to be one spectacular moment, right?
So I'll go first with this, and mine's kind of a little bit cliche into this. It really was that moment of when the weekend was over and sitting in the chair waiting for the rest of the games finishing up and going, especially after all transparency, after losing to Lane, the fashion that I did on the channel.
Lane, you broke him spiritually.
Was that a close game, DJ? No.
You broke him spiritually. That's how bad you beat him.
Oh, it was. I really was like, and like you said, we all say, "Oh, I just want to go 3-2." I was really hoping to just go 3-2. I was like,
"Yeah." He was like, after his first match, he was like, "I won one, guys. I got one win.
I'm not going to go win this."
I said this the whole weekend. I was like, "I believe you can go 4-1," because I thought I would stomp him into the ground when he went 4-1, and he would just be like, "Eldar is stupid" all the way home.
But the moment for me was literally sitting there and that realization of like, this was like Grey Knights are an underrepresented faction because of the fact of things like Eldar, GSC, and Imperial Knights really running the game, really running the show. You know, Grey Knights are expensive, don't have a lot of damage output. And I've heard the term big brain army used a couple of times for it. The way I translate that too is basically I'm not playing a traditional game of 40K. And this was a brainchild of mine. Like with this, after the game I played with Josh, where I ran the Catan list, while I was playing that game, I'm looking at the rules, looking at the cards, looking at everything, and literally was building this Grey Knight list in my head. And I'm like, this is what I need to compete. And I thought I had it. Then I play against Lane. And now I'm going to this thing like, but afterwards we discussed it. I'm like, no, the biggest mistake I made was I stopped playing my game and I played your game. I need to play my game. And I went into that and made sure every single game I played my game. So in like literally losing to you was the best thing that could have happened to me before getting in that tournament.
We talked about it afterwards. You tried to kill me. You said, I'm going to come in and kill these guys. And that's not what your army can do.
No.
Your army can win, but that's not how it wins.
No. And that was, and if I did not see that, I probably would have gotten picked up by someone. Honestly, Zach probably would have picked me up because I probably would have said, I'm going to try and kill this. And it wouldn't have worked out that way, which we'll come to that game in a second because I'm sure I wanted to talk about that. But literally my favorite moment was when it sat there in the chair knowing like the dust had settled, it's all over, and holy crap, I just went undefeated with Grey Knights at a 5-round GT. And looking at the score and everything like that and going, I'm placing, I'm walking out of here with something, and just still sitting there with the anticipation of like waiting for that moment and everything. And literally, I had a pretty good pop when I went up there. I heard some pretty good crowd pop, and I was happy. That felt great. I mean, realistically, it felt really good. And that really was my favorite moment out of that.
You know, this is what we work towards. Like I said, we're super nerds about this. This is what we work towards, is trying to win these things. And when you do really well, you should feel good about it. And at the Trip C in Cleveland last year, I got best painted. I was very happy. I'm like, texting my mom. Amazing. I'm texting my friends. I'm like, all right, I got a best painted. Here's the trophy. I'm so excited about it. So let's definitely be there. Be excited.
Just because Lane is such a bro, I just want to tell this story. Right? Like, I had just come back into Warhammer. I was working at Costco, so I had crazy hours. I didn't get to play as much Warhammer as I'd wanted to. But I came back, right? And this was my first ever GT because I never got to play one as a kid, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go 3-0 day one. My friend Doc G had introduced me to DJ. So I called DJ up in a panic. And I'm like, what do I do? These are the top armies. Oh my God, my Salamander's going 3-0. People are going to talk about my Salamander. No one talked about my Salamanders. Anyways, and he's like, just calm down, Zach.
We talked about your Salamanders.
You talked about it, but no one wrote an article about, hey, Zach Morales. I want an article about my Salamander.
Right,
shout out to Tactical Tortoise. Thank you, by the way.
Oh yeah, he got YouTube, and I didn't get. And my Salamanders didn't get anything. They deserve something, anyways. And out of the blue, I just get a message from someone, and it's like, "I heard you went 3-0. Congrats!" And I'm like, "I don't even know you that well."
That's always fun when someone randomly from like a Reddit group or something like that like compliments it. I had one with AdMech, like some dude in the UK, and I'm like, "Wow, you're watching my game," and I'm like. And the funny thing is though, when he said something, was like, yeah, I'm watching your game on stream. I was like, oh, that's right, I'm on video. I really hope I wasn't like adjusting myself or something. Those are the first things that come to my mind were like, oh, this is how I become a meme.
How discreet was I when I picked my nose?
yeah, right. So Lane, Zach's question to you, what was your favorite moment out of that GT?
I mean, obviously picking up a Stampa in turn one with half my army felt really good as a way to kick off the tournament. Being my first activation was to destroy 800 points for my opponent. It was again, shout out to Adam, your hero, for bringing that to Stampa. But really, it was the game with Josh, just because it was such a roller coaster. Because it started with him in turn two taking out 700 points of my army, 700 valuable points, and then being able to fight back from that just by staying focused on the game and not giving up. I think it's important the way this edition works, and with the flexibility of the tactical objectives, you need to play through the entire game. We've been talking about my last game that I lost. There was a good chance I could have won if I just remembered a couple things. It was on me. I could have done a couple things that might have changed it. And we always would have, could have, should have, but really stay into the game, because if I had just given up and like, I lost 700 points, it's my most powerful 700 points, what am I going to do? I was still able to come back from that pretty hard with like a significant 24-point win.
We're going to come back to that when we talk about mine and Zach's game, because that's definitely a factor.
Yeah, you have to stay into it, because last turn you could just pick the right objectives. You know, you might push into their deployment zone, you might take their home field objective, and then last turn you just pull, was it secure enemy stronghold, or where you take their objective, you get 8 points, and that's a huge swing in the game. So, but yeah, that was just a great experience. And again, because Josh is such a great opponent to play against, he's just a true gentleman, war gamer, and it's always fun to play him whether we win or lose. So, but that was probably my best moment in the games. I did hear a few people afterwards had talked about being destroyed by my DeathWatch. That made me feel kind of good too. They're like, "What is happening?" A couple of DeathWatch players like, "Oh, do it for us! Go for it, man!" Because there were 3 of us there, so it was nice to kind of be representing the faction that way. Zach, what was your favorite moment?
Well, the only way I can describe it is through my mind's eye. My glorious Wraith Knight descends from the heavens. Trumpets blare, music in the distance as the sun rises, and Shiva sees a fake Wraith Knight before her. She flicks her wrists, and 5 D cannon shots come out casually. The Wraith Knight disappears. And
only 5 shots?
Only 5 shots, 4 of them turning into devastating wounds. He just picked up the Wraith Knight. He didn't even want her to see the damage roll. It was glorious. There was nothing you could do about that.
Yeah, it's definitely a very swingy addition. There are definitely times when your dice just pop off in either the greatest way possible or the worst way possible.
God. My first game, I was playing against Imperial Knights, and it got to a point where I literally looked at my opponent and said, "Sir, if you want me to roll your dice, I will." Because the first 3 las cannons that went through and hit, I think it was 2 las and a hunter killer, but regardless, I rolled 6s on the damage right off rip. So I was like, I promise you, I was like, "Sir,
especially if you want dish, the dice that you had custom made."
Right.
I swear I didn't tell Chessex to weight these dice.
Right.
I don't think Chessex would do that.
No, but still, like I immediately was like, "If you want me to roll your dice, I will not even question it at all at this point." He's like, no. He's like, "I've watched you. I've seen the ones pop up on the exact same dice that you're rolling." He's like, you're fine. But it just happened to be sometimes that's dice. Sometimes that luck factor comes into it. And before I jump over to my question, that's where I want to cut into. We've said it a couple times because it does seem kind of crazy. Zach, during our matchup, our score was 100-100.
Oh yeah, and we actually, me and DJ were in the competitive mindset. There was a few times I was like, "Judge," and then we let the judge decide. Like the judge came over, and the judge was like, "Are you guys okay?" I'm like, "We're just focused."
It was a tight there because there was like tight corridors on stuff.
I want to say that getting judges involved is the way to go. Some people are shy about it and will say things like, "Oh, we'll just roll the dice or have my buddy here settle it for us." Get judges involved. That's what they're there for, even if it's just something simple, because that way you have this third party who makes the decision that's unbiased, and then you don't go through the rest of the game saying, "Well, geez, if he had rolled a 1 instead of a 4 on the roll off for the how he decided." You don't want to have that hanging over you.
And sometimes
get the judges involved and just be gentlemanly about it, or gentlepersonally about it. Have them check line of sight to see if you can actually see something. Ask them the questions, get them involved. That way, you and your opponent can go through that game not having sore feelings about an argument. It's decided for you.
Literally going into this thing, it was basically me going in and going, "Okay, here we go. I'm playing against Eldar." And Zach's looking like, "Okay, here we go. DJ's not going to give me any quarter on this one." So both of us were. And it was like, there was time we called Judge over it, and it wasn't like Judge argument point. It was, "Judge, look at it. Like, can you just confirm line of sight for me real quick?" And then we just step back, let it go and let it happen. And then the judge would say, "Yes, that can be seen," or "No, that can be seen." We go, "Oh, okay, moving on." Back into it.
And also, so I typically don't do this, but the terrain was massively in my favor that game.
As far as big things are concerned.
Yeah, for the
infantry, I was okay.
Yeah, for the infantry, it was fine, but the Wraith Knight could see everything, and unfortunately, I went first. And the Fire Prisms got line of sight on the Land Raider, on DJ's Land Raider, picked it up. Shiva saw his, Dread Knight, obliterated it.
Turn 1, I lost the Dread Knight and the Land Raider.
And
right like that.
I saw for a moment.
It's about 500 points, right?
Yeah, we're getting close. 2 and 3. Yeah, I think might be a little over 5.
Yeah. And I saw for a moment DJ was like, "This is ridiculous."
I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
He did say that. Like, his words were like, "I'm done," and I was like,
Buy me a beer, Zach.
and I was like, "Are you conceding?" And he's like, "No, I'm going to play it out." If he had conceded, I mean, I would have been 5-0, top table winner. But of course, Zacktopia was stopped by Tim's Nation. But we will invade again someday.
Now, needless to say, first of all, when we say about this, I killed your Hornet, your Spiders, your Guardians, 2 Warwalkers, and that was it, leaving you with both Fire Prisms, your Wraith Knight, both D Cannons.
I gotta stop you. What's her name?
Your Autarch.
No, Shiva, Destroyer of Men and
For
Will.
those who don't know, the Wraith Knight. And those were, you probably had 1,200 or more points left of your army.
Yeah.
I had Castellan Crow.
Yeah. And 2 other guys.
2, physically, not 2 squads, 2 Strike Marines. Yeah. Now, but because I went second, that was the reason I was able to get on the objectives at the end of the game to get that final 10 points. Because if I had gone first, then once I put those units on the objective to score the end game points, I'll give you this one. Shiva just goes, no, bad llama, and they're gone. That's it. That's literally it. But because I went second in that scenario, that gave me the chance. From that point, it was literally just every turn. Like I picking almost everything up. I was Mistadamosing 2-man units, and literally picking everything up off the field and going, this is the only choice I have. Putting little bits and pieces down out there, playing every single secondary. Because, I mean, granted, you've seen it firsthand, and you've seen it as well. One thing my list does is I score great on secondary. Like, I can almost max out secondary every game.
If the cards had not gone perfectly for you. Because, like we said, there were two secondary cards that would have messed up your whole game.
Well,
Deploy Teleport Homer.
Yes.
And the Investigate Signals.
Well, no.
Because you, at that point...
Puts you out in the open.
And those units can't miss Sadamos away next turn because they're in the open. There's no reason for him to move within 9 inches.
Okay, so Investigate Signals, or whichever one is the table corners ones, wouldn't have been completely the end of the world. The other one, yes. Now, but I did get behind enemy lines.
You discarded that.
I CP'd that. I CP'd that one out. And I also, another one that was really rough for me was I did get Tempting Targets, but I discarded that to gain a command point.
Yeah, I just left Shiva on that, and you were like, "No, I'm done. I'm good with that."
But yeah, no, I was like,
I think that's kind of a lesson about 10th edition. Is when the edition first dropped, our concern as players is probably how do I build something that kills. And now that we've been playing these tactical objectives, and that seems the way we're playing, you need to build an army to do tactical objectives. Everybody at first with Grey Knights was like, well, they're very mobile, but they can't really kill anything. But you don't need to kill a whole lot to win the game. And that's kind of influenced how I built my list. It hits really hard, but it is a ton of mobility. Someone asked me what the MVP of my army was, and honestly, it's the Teleportarium stratagem that lets me pick up 2 kill teams, and then I've got a Terminator squad with a captain, and I can use it for free on them, so I can redeploy 3 units every turn. That was gave me that mobility, so I could get into table quarters, get into do actions, and all move around. That paired with the Calidus, who can redeploy every turn. That was it. It was the mobility. So that's what Grey Knights have in spades, and lets you play the way you did.
And it was. I mean, again, playing against you and getting my teeth knocked hard up into my nostrils made it so that I was able to see I really needed to play my game. Had I not,
welcome. I'll beat you anytime you want.
Just like I'll beat you anytime I want.
I mean, realistically, Zach, I said this there, and I will say this on camera. It really came down to the cards, maybe, because it also depends on the time you get the cards.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, if it
had been like the first 2 turns, you would have
gotten some bad cards too.
I could have achieved everything.
That's the thing, is like I really do feel like Zach walked up to the table with that and said, "Hi, my name's Zach. I'm playing Eldar. Here's my 100 points. Let's play and see what you score."
I mean, even if I got a Teleport Homer, the Fire Prisms did nothing after turn 2. They didn't need to do anything because they're for big targets, and -1 AP into 2-up armor is
Yeah.
not worth it with cover.
Mhm.
So I would have been like, oh, I'm in the corner. Yep. I mean, there wasn't a bad technique I could draw once after turn 2. But
No, I
what did
agree.
cost me the game was DJ took out my warp spiders. We
Yep.
talked about it,
Yeah,
and they
that
needed to
mobility.
be in deep strike. I think even DJ saw as we were doing deployment. My second squad of warp spiders, I was like, what do I do with these? What do I do with these guys?
Yeah, and that was the biggest thing that was going through my mind the entire point of the game was I need to remove your infantry. I need to get them off the table so that you're not able to get in here and turn off my objectives. The MVP in that game was the strike because them constantly sticking objectives was just me flipping. It was like a child running through a house and turning on light switches and then just chasing the child and going, stop doing this. Stop doing this. I'm just running around flipping like light on here, light on here, light on here. And because of that, that was able to keep me like, oh, you killed the unit, but it stickied it. So now I still get the points. And that kept me into it where then we actually had an interesting interaction with one of the secondaries for you, which was overwhelming force, where you killed the purifiers that were not on the objective, but Crow was.
He was part of the unit.
And Crow was part of the unit. So it was back and forth. We were discussing with the judges on whether, okay, because Crow lived, but the purifiers died, did you get the points or not? And I was stopped and we literally had 4 judges over there, 2 rule books, and they're all talking. I just kind of
a college level debate at that point.
I sneaked around by Scott. I just snuck around by Scott, picked up the paper and started writing down here. And I told Zach, I'm going to put it down as 6/8. We'll come back to this and see if it matters. So then I played out a little bit of mine. I'm like, here, this goes there, because we were at end game. And I started adding it up. I'm like, Scott, it doesn't matter. We have a problem here. And I just hold up the sheet because we kept it on pen and paper. And it was 2 perfect 100 victories. Now, when I say perfect, I use that. Okay, fair. So, I mean, now, to also be fair, a testament to Zach, if we had, let's say the cap wasn't at that point, the final score would have been Eldar 108, Grey Knights 101. So Zach did have more points scored into it, but as stated with the rules, we cap at 50 on primaries, 40 on secondaries, and 10 points for being painted.
Yep, and the tiebreaker would have been strength of schedule, but I went and lost game 5 into Thousand Suns.
Yeah, Thousand Suns are brutal. Yeah, that's just knocking away armor saves like nothing. I for me personally, I think that Airman's ability should be more cut the Cabal cost in half versus just making it free.
Because then he can just doom bolt and doom bolt
till the end of the game. As long as he's alive, he can do whatever he wants all game long.
There's no if you don't kill Ariaman and you kill every other sorcerer, he's still no armor save.
Yeah. And I believe, from what I understood, he can move near the Temporal Beast, 36-inch range for it to knock away something, and then Temporal Surge away.
Yep. You need to know where that beast is and where Ariaman is. And
beast, it's the giant thing on the mass base.
You need to make sure that they can't be within each other. It's impossible because the table's so small now.
So, guys, we talked about a lot of this stuff, went through this all. We all did have a very successful weekend. None of us we all had positive records. We brought home, as a team, as a group, as people who travel together, we brought home titles and brought home championships, brought home wins, and brought home bragging rights for what we accomplished in this tournament. I mean, literally, Lane, you were seriously super close to just taking over the whole thing, which would honestly, I'm just going to say, that would have been awesome. You took that, and then I've come back, and we just be able to go back here with our 2 cups and go cheers. And it will happen. It will happen.
We the whole night we were all giggling because we were all 3-0, and Lane's like, "Wouldn't it be great if we just sweep 1, 2, 3?" And
we came real close.
Very close.
So close.
Very, very close. But the way I'm going to want to close this out on is kind of taking a step back and looking at this now. With your matchups that you had, and Zach, I'll kick it to you first. With the matchups that you had, with your list that you had, the exact same path, exact same way through it, is there anything for your list that you would have changed going into this tournament? You know, we've talked about warp spiders, we talked about swooping hawks, we talked about those things. You had 6, and just to give people a quick rundown, you had 3 5-man warp spiders.
Yep.
2 fire prisms.
Yep.
Wraith Knight,
Mm-hmm.
Autark,
Yep.
Farseer with
Yes.
Guardians,
Yep.
and
Walkers.
Yep.
2 Warwalkers, which were separate, correct?
Yes.
A Hornet.
Yep.
And 2 D-cannon platforms.
They're called dinosaur D-cannons.
But that's everything that. Oh, and a Shadow Weaver. The Shadow Weaver too.
Yes.
So, with all those units being said, is there anything from that list that you would have changed going into this tournament with the matchups you had?
You've been thinking about the indirect fire. Is it the Shadow Weaver? Have you been thinking about switching that out?
I was thinking about it.
Because it's AP nothing. It does have devastating wounds.
It is -2. It turns off advance.
No, yeah.
But if I'm not into custodes, it was irrelevant the whole tournament. I mean, it did do -2 movement, which did. It doesn't say infantry on it. Like when I read it, when my opponents read it. So when I played the demon matchup, like Shalaxi would come at me, and I was like -2 at the start of your movement. That was helpful.
Yeah.
But then I just phantasmed away, and it was outside 13 inches.
Yeah, it's not like you need more damage output.
So
it's
I
more
think
of a defensive thing.
Yeah, I think I might take I might try taking the Shadow Weaver route and swapping it, and maybe trying to skim maybe the Hornet, just fit in the Yin Karn, because can you imagine this?
Fast.
It's like you see God descend and smite something, and then a little blue baby demon comes out and just starts charging things.
So doesn't the Yin Karn have the ability to go anywhere that a unit dies?
Yes.
Isn't that so you could kill
any
unit.
So, your unit, the opponent's unit.
So in the case of what the Grey Knights were able to do against you, you would be able to kill a squad of strike and bam.
Because it was in the shooting phase, you wouldn't be able to miss the Damos either. So I would be in them. I'm in there.
Yep. Lane?
I don't think I would change anything in my list. I've been chatting with some people on DeathWatch Facebook groups, and people looked at it and made some suggestions. I don't want to change anything because I like the way everything works. I think in the future I will look at my opponent's stratagems first thing at the start of the game and kind of plan out where I'm going to use the Calidus Assassin's ability to make a strat more expensive, because there were several times in the tournament where I didn't use it till round 4 or 5, or once I even just didn't use it at all. I didn't need it. But I think planning that out to make sure it's effective early in the game. And sometimes it's just we want to use it on their fancy strats that they have for their army, but sometimes just vecting the CP reroll is huge and makes a big difference, especially against charging armies. I should have done that against custodes early in the game. I did not. But I think planning that out would help a whole lot, because I think I've gotten pretty good with the movement aspect of it, and the defensive aspect of the army. It's just a matter of making full use of that. I definitely use the Calidus for her movement shenanigans, but that's the only thing I would change, just plan that out a lot more specifically. How about you, DJ?
Why would I change anything? My list is perfect. I went undefeated. No, just kidding. So
sorry I asked.
Yeah, you should be. Apologize.
Yeah, I forgot this.
Shiva smite you.
Address me as War Master, please. No, honestly, okay. So a couple of things. The Land Raider was cool. Could I get more versatility out of double Rhino?
That was something I was wondering too.
I mean, but like you said, it tanked a lot.
It tanked a lot, and it was able to put heavy fire down onto those knights. Now, granted, we discussed this. If I had gone first during our matchup, the first thing I would have done was roll out the Land Raider and pray to the dice gods, because realistically, the odds aren't in my favor. But again, in a game,
I'm a 2-up, and I was partially uncovered the way I set up.
So you're going to be looking at, you'd been on 4s all the way through. But I mean, again, this is a game of dice, and that could happen. And yes, the Land Raider actually has the damage output to put the Wraith Knight down.
It's the only damage output you have at range.
Yes, because the Dread Knight, it's AP1. You're going to shrug that off. The Silencer, you're going to shrug that off. The Land Raider with the that's one thing. So, and that's where it's tough into it. That's where it's tough into it, is because I look at it okay, but Rhino, I could hide a little more into this, because the original reason for the Land Raider was planning into Desolation Marines and planning into heavy artillery, which I was very glad I had the Land Raider, because it did protect 50% of my army to be on board. So it did its job in that aspect of it, and was a gunboat later into the game. So, but there was still part of me that still give the whole what if. What if this was Rhinos that I was able to move out onto objectives? Oh, you blow it up. Now the Striker there, and then the Strike sticky objective.
Battle shocked one coming out.
That's fine. That's fine because the strike, the battle shock, or I'm sorry, the
You have OC0, so you don't control it.
Ooh, that's a good point. So I wouldn't control it during my command phase. No, I would control it because it would unbattle shock.
Yeah, it only affects during your opponent's turn.
Yeah.
So you can't use strats on.
I feel like battle shock needs to be FAQ'd.
No, I think it's fine because it still impacts
Can you
the
take
game.
Razorbacks?
I can
And
take
they can take a
Razorbacks.
twin last cannon.
They can take twin last cannon, so that could be interesting.
But it's only one shot, twin linked.
Is it?
It's
not
twin
God
linked. It's
Hammers?
not 2 shots.
Yeah, the God Hammers on the Land Raider. I think it's 4 shots.
It's 4 shots.
That's kind of a big deal.
Really good.
Yeah. So that was one thing. Purifiers, I mean, they're awesome. I love them. I thought they would have been great into the GSC matchup, which I was watching for there. I was glad I
did not
after. I want to sit down and go over that a little more because that's not the way I want to learn how to play against GSC. But I felt like the Purifiers would have been a very good tool against them. But it would have went out of my wheelhouse of how I've played this army, where I probably would have had to deploy them on the board to control that realm, and I haven't practiced that, so that was a little scary. And the Purifiers, I did look and go, man, what if I pulled in, if I separated this and put in more infantry and just had more 5-man squads in that sense? But having one big bulky 10-man that with Crow in there did really well. So it's hard to say going into these matchups what I would have changed into this current tournament flow build because the matchups I had were sustainable for what I was doing. But there are definitely things that I could say, well, how could I tweak this and play off of Rhinos, Razorbacks? How could I tweak this and take the Purifiers and play off of other infantry? Because I got bolters for days. So there is a lot of little things that I was wondering to tweak over to. Now, obviously, in this, I'm trying to say this without sounding like I have a massive ego. I did go undefeated. So it's like, okay, obviously what I did worked, but I didn't beat Eldar. I tied Eldar. What could I do to get around that? Honestly,
you could wait for the nerf of Eldar.
Yeah, realistically.
Do you have a way to not let me shoot you unless I'm within 18?
Not really. I mean, I do have,
It's not possible.
Yeah, I don't see it much.
Yeah, no. Only 1,000 Suns can be like, hey.
And I don't have really a feel no pain access. I got feel no pain off of mortals, but not off of
psychic attacks.
No. You have their psychic attacks from a librarian.
Yeah.
4-up feel no pain psychic attacks if you have a librarian. 4-up feel no pain mortal wounds Drago.
Oh, so one unit.
One unit that's joined. Yes.
I'll just
either way.
Them off the table.
Exactly. And then at the same time, it's just a little too tough. Now, I mean, at the same time, too, terrain. The terrain did favor you, like you said. The terrain did favor you.
I did change sides to make sure it double favored me.
Yeah, you wanted to be that guy.
Yeah, but I did that.
You made switch
sides. At a GT, I was like, we're switching sides.
Yeah, I know, right? We were in the middle, like we're at the center table in the middle of the lineup, and he goes, "I want to go over there." I'm like, "You're really going to do this to me?"
And I said yes, and he threw a fit.
This is why you guys need a cart, so you can just push your cart out.
Oh, then he has the audacity to ask me. He's like, "You slide me my army?" I'm like, "No,
I'm not going to carry that across like a peasant. I'm an Eldar."
But yeah, it's tough to say like what I feel like.
I mean, you also have that emotional attachment to your Land Raider, which makes it hard to give up.
Oh yeah, this baby was almost turned into an orc battle wagon and was resurrected and brought there. That was tough. And I mean, she did great. I mean, she was picking up.
She. That is one ugly woman.
Excuse me, Zach. Yeah, that is a beautiful, beautiful piece of machinery. But
I'm sorry.
But she was picking up trucks. She was taking out, hitting armigers and everything. I mean, she definitely gave me a strong weapon that I don't normally have access to with the Grey Knights, and was just a threat, like a sponge. It almost feels like if I start making changes to the list as I built it, I need to change the overall core dynamic of the list.
Yeah,
like
change one thing and change everything.
She is great into this current meta because vehicles are so prominent, and you need a way to pop them because you also
need a way to threaten
charge
them so that they can't just own the table. Because when you see, like, if you haven't played a game against Eldar and you haven't been able to see what happens when a Wraith Knight just starts lumbering around the table, you literally can't do anything to stop it. So you need to at least have something that can point at it and threaten those things. If you don't, then you're giving full control to a piece that literally can just pick up entire armies by itself. At least half the army. So
she's killed the whole army.
And I mean, they're going to continue to for a while.
People's souls.
They're going to continue to for a while. I don't really see much of what they can do to nerf the Wraith Knight. I mean, if they
need to nerf Devastating Wounds as a whole.
If they nerf Wraith Knight, they're going to basically nerf it into oblivion.
Or something that me and Lane were talking. We wanted to do a battle where we took away Fate Dice from Eldar and see if that's what breaks them. But,
yeah, I personally think the way to fix the Eldar is to take away their Fate Dice. They already get to reroll a wound every time anyway, so I can just fish for those Devastating Wounds. Not having that guaranteed 6, I think would make a big difference. I think they're still really strong. Like in the games we played with Eldar, like you still roll a fair number of 6s with all those weapons. So it'd be an interesting experiment. I think maybe the other possibility is just change Devastating Wounds in general. Maybe if you roll a 6, you do 1 mortal in addition to the regular damage.
That's what they did last edition with the weekend, and they were still feared.
Yeah, I mean, they're still strong. It's just that when you just throw 12 mortals onto a squad,
I think they missed the boat. I think they missed the boat, and by saying you can only use 1 Fate Dice per turn was not the answer. It should have been Fate Dice don't trigger critical hits.
Yeah.
Because now you have this pool, because like when we played, one thing I noticed, you have this pool of Fate Dice, and you're never going to use all of them. Like, you don't have really enough active phases to use all the Fate Dice that you generate, and you're not even getting close to the end of it.
I mean, I'm just also confident I'll roll good. Like, I mean, that's cocky of me to say, but I'm like, yeah, I'll roll 4 up.
Yeah.
But needless to say, though, still, you don't have the phases.
My opinion on the Fate Dice, the nerf of the Fate Dice, actually wasn't that much of a nerf. Before the nerf, they would use all their 6s and 5s for devastating and then the damage rolls. Mm-hmm. Now when they take that away, so you can only do 1 for phase, well, what are they going to do with those 5s then? Mm-hmm. Well, then they come into, instead of spending them in turn 1, they're spending them throughout the game on invuln saves. So even though they reduce the damage output by not being able to use all of them in one shot from the Wraith Knight, now they can use it for those 4s and 5s. They're saving them. They're not spending them all in that initial shooting phase, and they have them throughout the game. So now you're using them for invuln saves and just actually made the army more durable than if they had spent all those right away. I don't think it was that much of a nerf, really. It just spread out their usefulness and didn't concentrate it much, but didn't tone down.
I would have liked to see it by more the not trigger the critical aspect of it, because then, like you said, it's going to make it to being more creative around how that damage kicks out, because you get that damage through, you can still turn that damage dice off the Wraith Cannon into 12 and hammer something through and hammer through these hits.
I mean, if they take away the ability to trigger criticals, then they're just going to put us back to 9th edition Fate Dice, which just gives me auto passes saves, and I re-roll them every turn.
I don't know. I'd be curious to see how that would go. Like, go back to that.
Still be useful for your damage rolls and things.
Yeah. They don't do damage rolls ever. I don't think we can use it for our damage rolls. I never even think about it. I just roll the dice. I'm like, that's box.
Well, that's good. I mean, you've only really played them post nerf. You didn't really play them pre.
I know. I didn't even want to play them like half the time because it's not fun for your opponent a lot of times. And I've expressed I wanted to learn the technical aspects. Like, I'm excited to get Swooping Hawks on the table. I'm excited to play Banshees. I'm excited to have all these conversions and these beautiful models and ideas that I'm not going to get to do because any other way to play Eldar as a competitive player, to you guys as a practice partner, is just disrespectful. Like, you guys, when you play Eldar, you're like, what am I going to actually be playing? You don't want me to be like kitty gloves. No,
bring me your worst. Send me your champion.
Yeah, and Shiva comes down, and then she's like, you thought, and then she leaves.
Yep. All right, guys. Well, I think we covered basically everything from our event. We had a great weekend. Weather was good. There was no rain that we had to drive back through. Food was great. What was it? What was the place we ate at?
Oh,
Taco Nice.
Taco Nice.
It was authentic.
Taco Nice was very nice.
The guy up front, when he walked up, he was like, "Hablo Español?" And I'm like, "No, I'm an Americanized Colombian. I can't speak Spanish." And he's like,
"Oh, you're here for phone translator to
yeah."
And they come out and they're like, "Oh, here's your food."
Oh,
look at it, and it's all immaculate. Like,
oh my gosh, and that burrito, dude!
They had that atmosphere. I was hoping to get some chips and salsa. I forgot to ask.
Yeah, I mean, when it's authentic though, you gotta watch out because the hot sauce is hot.
All right,
but here you go.
Well,
to a good weekend. To a good weekend.
To a good
Bare-handed
weekend.
cheers. What are we doing?
Give me my cup.
What is this pageantry? What are you trying to do?
All right, guys.
Show off my cup one last time.
No. And I just want to say
Finished
thanks
as
for having me on the
Warmaster.
channel again.
Thanks for coming out, man. Thanks for coming out.
It's been a while, guys, but I do talk
The
about
Warmaster.
stuff behind the scenes sometimes.
Yeah, no, it's been a wild ride, and this was a great GT. This was a good one. We're gonna be. I'm not sure which one we have set up for next, but there's a lot of
hungry for
events.
more.
I'm hungry too.
If you're interested, me and Lane should be at the Canton GT. They're hosting at Battlegrounds. So if fans of the channel want to beat Lane,
All of my fans,
yeah, all of the fans.
please show up in Ken.
Yeah,
19th and 20th.
yeah,
I'll sign autographs.
I'll sign autographs too. You can take a picture with Shiva. You can't touch her.
I'll be celebrating my birthday, August 21st, so I won't be there. But
Yeah, it's good because when I'm War Master Supreme General,
we gotta get you guys some
Commodore.
trophies. Gotta get you guys some trophies. Gotta bring them.
I don't need a trophy. I just need to put this down, put my better trophy right here above yours.
All right, bring it, man. Bring it. I look forward to seeing it.
I just have to beat Lane now.
There you go. There's the real challenge.
Yeah.
Guys, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you again soon.